It's not often remembered that Bizet was really quite a child prodigy, more so, I believe, than either Vaughan-Williams or Verdi were. And the Symphony of Bizet, that pops up fairly frequently on symphonic programs, was a product of his teenage years. He was 16, 17 when he wrote it, and it is an incredible work. It's known both as a symphonic piece, and as a ballet. It was choreographed as Symphony in C. I'm sure a lot of you know what the opening is. But the thing that I love most about the symphony is there is a terrific scherzo. Obviously, he knew his Beethoven scherzos, his Mendelssohn scherzos, his Schubert scherzos, but there's this one moment in it where you go, Bizet. I mean, the personality, just by virtue of this one little harmonic twist, is already there. The scherzo begins. Etc. Then there's a trio section, which sounds very folksy. It's got kind of a bagpipe drone, and he uses the main idea and somewhat morphs it. And then, when he restates it, comes this incredible moment, which he could have written like this. Etc. But he, instead of, he uses the tritone within that F major tonality, and we get this, which was to be a harmonic thumbprint for the rest of his life. Little piquant bit of harmony, and that was something that he would do forever up until his very latest works. And I was thinking of it the other night as we were rehearsing L'Arlésienne, the movement called Carillon, which is all based on a sort of a bell call. Then comes a softer section, which again, he could have written. But being Bizet, he uses that same idea of a tritone. There's his voice, already evident at the ripe old age of 16 or 17, which he carried forth for the few decades past that he was permitted to live. Anybody who knows me at all well knows that I work the fact that Vaughan-Williams is my favorite 20th century composer into just about any musical discussion I can. And it still amazes me that this man who produced so many great works that I'm sure the greater public would find immensely appealing is still known for so few of them. And so on this concert, we're going to do two very short works, and then a grand work indeed, which really is deserving of a wider audience. We're going to start with a work called Toccata Marziale, which was originally for a symphonic band. It was the British composers who really got symphonic band music off and running at the beginning of the 20th century. The Australian-born Percy Grainger wrote many pioneering works for the medium. Gustav Holst wrote several great works for band. And Vaughan-Williams wrote three masterpieces for the symphonic band medium: the English Folk Song Suite, a very short work called Sea Songs and the Toccata Marziale. The Sea Songs, Vaughan-Williams arranged for symphony orchestra. The English folk song suite was, I believe, arranged for symphony orchestra by his one-time pupil Gordon Jacob. So symphonic audience, people who attend symphony concerts rather than just band concerts, are familiar with these works. But the toccata is only known to persons who go to symphonic band concerts or collect recordings of symphonic band repertoire. It is virtually unknown outside of the symphonic band repertoire. And so to try to remedy this, I have made my own arrangement of the toccata for symphonic orchestra. Instead of just winds, brass, and percussion, it now includes a string section and a part for the harp. And I'm hopeful that between this and a couple of other performances that I have arranged or I'm in the process of arranging, that this work too will worm its way into the public's heart. It's 4 minutes of really, really great music. The prelude to the film 49th Parallel was Vaughan-Williams' first attempt at writing a film score. He was 70 years old, and as one biographer put it, he attacked this new challenge with all the relish of a schoolboy, many years younger than he was. And he enjoyed writing for films so much that he went on to score, I think, about 10 or a dozen movies between the age of 70 and his death at the age of 85. He thought it was a marvelous way for a composer to reach a different kind of audience. He liked the discipline. He very much enjoyed the fact that you frequently had to do things on the fly. He wrote a charming essay on the subject of composing for film. He said at one point, rather wickedly, because it was essentially saying something that we in music know, which is that many, not our videographer, but many people involved in the production end of film are quite ignorant about music in general. And so he said, you must always be prepared when writing a film score for any emergency. Don't be so wedded to what you've written that you can't be flexible. He said, imagine the following situation. You're in the midst of a recording session. You've written a cue, a piece of music for a scene in which you see Columbus's 3 ships sailing across the sea. And suddenly, the director, who's there listening to the recording, says, you know, we need a little bit of music to highlight the sun coming over the horizon. Vaughan-Williams said, first thing, don't panic. First thing you do is give the orchestra a 10-minute break, which will delight them. Then you take your score and you look for any instruments at all that you're not using at that point where the director wants the insertion of music, say 2 muted trumpets and harp. You quickly add a little glint of sunrise music. You copy out the parts for the 2 trumpets and the harp. You reassemble the orchestra. You play the cue, which now has the addition of the sunrise music in it, and you get an incredible bear hug from the director, who's amazed that you came up with an entirely new piece of music in only 10 minutes. That was Vaughan-Williams, the eminently practical and somewhat diabolical composer of film music. And his film music really is superb. And like many other classical composers who wrote film music, and the list includes Shostakovich, Honegger, Prokofiev, William Walton, Aaron Copland, some of the great names of 20th century music, Vaughan-Williams found that frequently the music could be readapted for concert purposes, either played as a symphonic suite or possibly used as the basis for a symphonic composition. He wrote the music for a film which I've not yet seen called The Loves of Joanna Godden, some elements of which found their way into his 6th symphony, and his music for the film Scott of the Antarctic, about the tragic expedition that Captain Scott led to the South Pole and froze to death there with several of his teammates, became the basis of Vaughan-Williams' 7th Symphony, which he actually called Sinfonia Antarctica. The last piece we're going to play of Vaughan-Williams is this ballet called Old King Cole. Vaughan-Williams wrote 2 big, great ballet scores. One was Job, which was based on the beautiful engravings by William Blake, based on the book of Job from the Bible. But this earlier work, which comes from the early 1920s, is a delightful piece based very heavily on folk music or on tunes that sound like they could be folk music. and gives many of the players in the orchestra a chance to strut their stuff soloistically. He opens up with a musical statement, which is a musical equivalent of the beginning of the children's rhyme, "Old King Cole was a merry old soul." And goes from there. In the course of the ballet, there are some very lyrical sections. There is a very sensuous part, which is supposed to be a musical illustration of the hookah, which is brought on stage so that Old King Cole can smoke his beloved pipe. And then there are 3 big violin solos, indicating the fiddlers 3 who come on and have a contest to see which of them will be most preferred by the king. So what I've done is I've spread the wealth here, and I have 3 of our orchestral violinists taking each one of these solos so that each one of them has a different character. I'll give you an idea of one of them. Vaughan-Williams himself was a very, very fine violinist, and so he wrote very idiomatically for the violin at one point. And it goes on from there, and the orchestra takes it and becomes wild and a little bit orgiastic, but of course always with a layer of good English taste.